Okay.
So can you record, before we have the vote, my vote against
I will. Yeah,
A, B and G?
Okay. And now I think someone else who had their hand up?
Well, can I just ask, can I talk on, is A finished now?
Yes, it is, and we're now on B.
No,
Okay. Right. Well, I'll move, and seconded by Councillor Cullen. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against?
No.
Thank you, Councillor Cathy. Right. Move on to item C.
So if you
Councillor George, you're on item C, page 14.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
in terms of the view shaft protections, we have what is called a height sensitive area, which tend to be areas that are around the base or in some cases the slope of our volcanic cones. Within that height sensitive area, the notified version of the plan recommended that buildings could be built to a height of 8 metres as a permitted activity, and that was to enable privately owned properties to be used for a viable use. The panel has come back and recommended that 8 metres be increased to 9 metres, so that's an increase of 1 metre. And considering that the staff support that recommendation because that is the height that is allowed in the single house zone. And so we are recommending that the council accepts that change from 8 to 9 metres, a 1 metre increase.
Grounds of consistency.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll move that. Oh, Councillor Mai.
Does that presuppose then that I see the logic in that, but does that presuppose that the single house zones that have already, that are positioned around the maunga, the volcanic cones, are not being upzoned? Because I believe some of them are being upzoned, and so that will also act to impede views.
So in the case, so you're correct, there are some areas that have been changed from single house to a higher density zone that would sit within that height sensitive area, but as a permitted activity they could only build to 9 metres even if the zone height was higher.
Kind of anomalous then, that sets up another argument down the track then, doesn't it?
That is the approach that the panel has taken to overlays. They have not necessarily looked at an overlay and said, well, the zone provisions that sit under that overlay, whether it's a volcanic view shaft or some other overlay, needs to be integrated. Their view is overlay takes precedence over the zone provisions and there is no need to try and integrate the two. So you will find that that exists in a number of overlays.
Very good. Any other questions, councillors or comments? Right, it's moved and seconded by Councillor Cullen. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Thank
No.
you. Voted again?
No.
Thank you. 2 notes. Item D, Devonport.
So this relates to a small portion of the Devonport town centre, where the panel is recommending that the permitted height in some of the height sensitive areas of that town centre be 13 metres. It doesn't relate to the whole of the town centre, it relates to parts of the town centre. Our expert landscape Stephen Brown supported that 13 metres, and staff are recommending that we should also accept the recommendations, that council should accept the recommendations of the panel.
Councillor George.
I mean, it's quite a substantial increase. This is from the Devonport Wharf area, isn't it? Looking up to Mount Victoria, is it?
It's on the western side of Victoria Street Road.
Yeah, yeah.
So it is, from looking up from the wharf, it's on the left-hand side,
Yeah.
not on the right-hand side. Our landscape architect would have been uncomfortable with allowing 13 metres on the eastern side as you look at Mount Victoria from the wharf, but on the western side, he feels that the additional 2 or 3 metres
Shadowed by the...
really will have no visual impact, no difference.
It's, well, it's, so it's not a, you're saying it's, they're saying it's not a view shaft in the true sense of the word.
No, the panel is saying there would still be a height-sensitive area
Yeah.
apron around all of Devonport, but in that western side of Victoria Road, the allowance would not be 9 metres but 13 metres for those properties to the west in towards the supermarket area in there, because the loss of view between 9 metres and 13 in that area, there will be no perceptible loss of public views from anywhere.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor John.
Yeah, no, just seeking a little clarification on that one. So that would mean from down on the western side, looking up from the Strand walkway and the housing down there, that their view wouldn't be impacted up to Mount Victoria then, is that what you're saying?
The height-sensitive area control is intended to protect public views, not views from private individual houses.
I'm talking about the public strand, the walkway that looks up easterly towards Mount Victoria.
So our landscape architect has looked at that very carefully and feels that there'll be no adverse impacts in that additional height from any public place. So,
Particularly out of the library.
4 metres is quite a significant increase though, isn't it?
Right.
From current.
I'll move that. Councillor Clay, your second. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against?
No.
No.
No. Those?
Would.
Just stop. I note 3.
Would.
I'm against. Please record mine, thank you.
Yep, it will be noted. Right, move on to E.
So this relates to a rule that was in the unitary plan which said that if you had if there was already a building within a view shaft and you sought to build a new building that was right behind that building, so the view shaft was blocked by the existing building, then you would not be affected by the view shaft rule. The panel is of the view that that's not a good approach, and because that the first building could be removed in the future, so they have removed that sort of exception to meeting the rule, and staff accept their reasoning that you know, over the life of this plan, existing buildings will come and go, and so we shouldn't use that as a reason to accept a new building from being built in a view shaft. So what this means, any new building in a view shaft will need to go through a consenting process, and if it actually pierces the view shaft, it will be non-complying.
I'm happy to move.
Okay, Councillor Ross will move and Councillor
Happy to
Kenny
second.
will second. Oh, okay. Appears to be no further discussion. I'll move that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Thank you.
No,
Thank you, Councillor Mike. F, page 16, George.
So this aspect relates to a rule which indicated as a restricted discretionary activity, you could have buildings intruding into a regional significant view shaft up to 8 metres. And that was in recognition that there are some view shafts in Auckland which, if you did not allow a development to build up to 8 metres, then that private property would not be able to build any building on it. And it was just a recognition that 2 storeys is the standard height allowed along all of the low density zones. And what they're indicating is because the single house zone now allows 8 metres plus a 1 metre roof deviation, which takes you to 9, then we should increase that restricted discretionary requirement to 9 metres. And beyond 9 metres, it's still a non-complying activity to go through a view shaft. It's just a practical recognition that people do need to be able to use their land.
Move it for
Would you like to move it,
consistency.
Councillor Linda?
Happy to
Seconder,
second.
please. Councillor Dick.
It was a long discussion, that one, and we agreed we couldn't require people to live in hobbit holes.
There you go. I'll move that. All those in favour say aye.
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 Against? Thank you.
And
Item G.
the last the last one here is the recommendation of the panel, which they're indicating, because they've come up with the secondary category of view shafts, which is around local public views, that there should be a lesser control on the penetration of buildings. So for regionally significant view shafts, they agree with the council's position that if you penetrate a view shaft beyond that 9 metres that I've talked about, you're non-complying. But with locally significant views, they've said a penetration of the view shafts should require only a restricted discretionary activity consent. And that does give a differentiation between the two rules, two types of view shafts, sorry, and so staff are recommending that that be accepted.
All right, do I have a mover? I'll move it. Is there a seconder? Councillor Penny H. Right, got Councillor Cathy.
We never asked for the differentiation between regional and local, and so we shouldn't accept this.
Okay,
Because that all presupposes that you thought it was a great idea in the first place, and it isn't.
okay. Anyone else?
Agreed.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
No. Ooh, by division.
Three against.
Actually, we'd already requested. That was being done. Are you serious?
I heard the
So
wind.
how many, can you just tell us how many voices?
Hands, no.
Hands? Show of hands. Show of hands.
That again.
See, look.
Those against?
Hey,
4. Note those, please.
5. You can't count.
Lose the
6, okay. Note them. Well done, team. Okay, so that brings us to the conclusion of 5.3. Well done, thank you very much. Item 5.4, significant ecological areas and vegetation